In the book of James, he describes a lot of things, including starting where we've looked before about counting it all joy when you fall into various trials, testings, provings. But I want to go to chapter 4 and just the first verse. And James asks a question, and the way he asks a question, he's also providing the answer. He says in James 4:1, "Where do wars and fights come from among you? Where do the contentions, the disagreements, the wranglings, the fighting, the bickering, where do they come from?" He says, "Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war in your members?" So what is James talking about here? He says, where do wars, fights, contentions, disagreements, bickerings, and fightings, where do these come from? Why are they here? And he's writing to church, to people that are the church, the body of Christ, and raising this question, why is there problems? Why are there problems? Why are you having disagreements and you're feeling put out by somebody, you're upset, you're angry, there's all these things going on. And he says, don't they come from the fact that you want something that you don't have? So what he's saying is the disagreements, the problems, the fights that we find that we have relationally between people is because of self-centeredness, being focused upon what I want, which becomes more important than what you want or what you need. It is a self-centeredness. It is at the root of all the fights and disagreements, of all the people getting their feelings hurt and being upset with one another. Someone, at least one person, to cause this to happen, it takes both of them, but one person begins by wanting something they didn't receive. I need you to do this and you didn't do it, and they're upset. Now, if the other person, which if you read just a few verses before this in James chapter 3, he talks about two different kinds of wisdom. One that doesn't come from above and one that does come from above. So obviously the wisdom that comes from above is the godly wisdom, and it seeks reconciliation, it's pure and it's peaceable. But the one that's earthly is not from above, it's earthly, it's fleshly, it's sensual, based upon senses, how I feel. And he says it's demonic, meaning it's influenced by the same thing that directs and guides the opposition, the contrary to God's ways. So when I'm feeling hurt and upset because I didn't get something I wanted, if the other person in the relationship is doing the same thing, it could be just a friend, it could be an acquaintance, it could be just somebody at church, wants something and doesn't get it, and so now there's conflict between us because we both want something, different things that we didn't receive in this relationship, and now there are problems. And people's feelings get hurt. People get angry. People react. They act out of those hurt feelings and those feeling insulted and disrespected. They act out of their anger, and it's not a good thing. And James is highlighting this. So now what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Because that's important is whenever we look at something, we see something like this, what do I do with it? How does this help me? Well, the simple way that it helps me is I get to look at myself in my own heart and say, am I feeling this way because there's something I'm desiring, I'm wanting from this other person that I'm not getting? Simple as that. Because I can change this. I can change how I'm looking and seeing this situation. I don't have to be self-centered. And most of the time, self-centeredness is just like it doesn't even register. But we can turn this around and say, what am I missing? What's going on that my feelings are hurt or I'm angered? What is it that I'm needing in this situation? Analyze and look at that. And it helps me to see the other person with a lot more compassion and understanding, because he or she didn't create my feelings and anger. They were merely stirred by whatever was going on in the situation, but it leads me to look inside and say, what's actually going on in my heart? And that's what James is contributing to us. He's showing us that anger and resentment and contentions and fights, these are the product of an unexamined motivations in my own heart. And I can't examine somebody else's heart, but I can examine mine. And that's what I want. I don't want anger and fights and contentions. So I must look inside and see what are my needs and wants, my expectations that are being unmet. and why do they exist in my heart, so that they can be brought into the light and can be dealt with.